I turn around and Ridley's just like, and I'm going, how's that? And he's going, but that's what you want to do. That's the job. You want to pin your director in his seat. It's not, our job as composers isn't to do what they tell you to do. Our job is to surprise them. Our job is to do the stuff they can't imagine.
We're going to dive straight in with Rain Man, because really Rain Man was the film that launched you internationally, wasn't it? Where were you and what were you doing before you got to Rain Man, or when you got Rain Man?
Hang on, I did a film called A World Apart, and it's a great movie. It's actually a wonderful movie, which very few people saw, but Diana Levinson, Barry Levinson's wife, saw it, and I'm always being very precise about this story, because she went into HMV and bought him the CD, and he was over here promoting Good Morning Vietnam, and he didn't have my phone number, but somebody gave him the address for our studio down the Lily Road, and 11 o'clock at night, there's a knock on the door, and I'm opening the door, and there's a guy standing there, and he's going, "Hi, my name's Barry Levinson." Pause. "I'm a director." And I'm thinking, yeah, you and my mum both, right? But I see behind him there are these two, remember those old Bentley limousines that nobody ever drove? So there were two of those squashed down our little alley. I thought, maybe he is. And so actually, quite recently I asked Barry if he ever saw A World Apart. He never saw the film, but he just loved the music. And he sort of said, did I want to come to Hollywood? And he was actually really worried that I would say no and be some sort of European art snob as opposed to a complete whore. Turns out I'm a complete whore.
So what was the brief for Rain Man? How did you approach it?
But actually the brief was really simple. I've done that on a few movies. We made a list of what not to do, because it's basically a road movie, and road movies in those days was either jangly guitars or sweeping strings. So we weren't going to do jangly guitars or sweeping strings. And I just thought it was interesting that this character was sort of so disoriented in the world, so that the music could be just this mashup of Cuban rhythms with crazy synth sounds and, whatever. It's foreign. Foreign was good, and I can get really foreign.
I had a little quote that Ridley said about you. He said, "In my head, I listen to Hans's music and I don't even have to shut my eyes. I can see the pictures. He responds to pictures." Now we're moving towards Gladiator, to talk about Gladiator. How did the relationship work? Let's say the difference between working with Tony Scott and with Ridley Scott.
Well, the difference is that with Tony, it was literally just the most fabulous creative chaos. I mean, okay, so here's the difference. Tony would say to me, "Have you ever ridden on a motorbike through the desert at night?" I'm going, "I don't ride motorbikes." He goes, no, you gotta come along, gotta listen to the desert at night. And that would be his way of explaining something. Ridley would phone me at 9 o'clock in the morning because he knows I'm still asleep. And he'd go, "Hey, do you want to do a Gladiator movie?" And I'd start laughing and go, "What, men in skirts?" And he'd go, "No, it's not that sort of a Gladiator movie." And the pictures thing is very important, because I learned actually on Gladiator don't read the script. Don't read the script on a Ridley Scott film. Go to dinner with Ridley and get him to tell you the story, because then you figure out what's important for him. And because he's such an amazing artist, he inevitably at a certain point will take the pen out and start drawing the scenes for you. So you get to see the movie unfold before your eyes, because the way he draws is the way he will shoot the scene. So not so bad. I mean, he went to the Royal Academy. He from up north, it was him and there was like this other northern chap there, but everybody else was like rich and dressed in purple velvet and stuff like this. And so the other guy was sort of earning a bit of money on the side, washing up beer mugs, etc. But one day Ridley looked over his shoulder and realized that he needed to, Ridley was never going to be the painter. This guy was David Hockney. And that's really what persuaded Ridley that he had to go and look broaden his gaze and look somewhere else.
What's interesting about Gladiator, of course, is it's a fairly traditionally scored film, isn't it? With big orchestra. I know there's other elements within it, and of course we must talk about Lisa Gerrard as a very important vocal element in it. But it's a fairly traditional score in that sense.
It's traditional. It's a bit of a mess. I mean, I couldn't. Again, like Rain Man, Gladiator, the cutting room and my studio, they cut in my studio, which made it really collaborative and very interactive. But very early on, we had this conversation that there was absolutely no female soul in the movie. I remember Pietro Scalia, the editor, he had 3 CDs standing on his little desk, and he picked the first one up and he went, what about Lisa Gerrard? And Ridley and I just went, yeah, that's okay, it sounds like a good idea. And I phoned in, it's too long a story to tell you, but that whole opening, I mean, obviously that does not exist in the script, because what would be the first thing you would cut for budget? 1 minute of, it's not even Russell's hand, an extra's hand on the wheat.
Oh, you've totally spoiled it now.
He doesn't. I can go. Do you want me to do worse? Like at the end, when he dies and he goes through Elysium's gates, Ridley had that image in his head. He knew he had seen the gates to heaven somewhere, and he thought it was in Tuscany. So he sent the scouts out to Tuscany. It wasn't there. He thought it was in Spain. Wasn't in Spain. He thought it might have been, because we shot a lot of it down in Farnham, just by Guildford.
Yeah.
He thought it was there. And then finally he remembered, it's the crew's toilet in Malta. All right, so the gates to heaven. Did I now ruin this for you for good?
Totally.
Okay, good.
I did know about the battle scene. I always think of that when you're going down that big A road out of Surrey.
Right, exactly.
Just to the right, I think, is where the whole of the battle scene was done at the beginning of the film, isn't it?
Yeah. No, and that like that really big guy who holds up the head and he's shouting something. And Ridley says, he's the German. I said, I can't understand it. What is he saying? And finally Ridley said, well, he's a Scottish actor. And then I understood it. He's going Schweinehunde, but with a Scottish accent. The hardest thing was, I had written this crazy, the battle stuff. I mean, that was incredibly complex. And every time the cut changed, Pietro very kindly cut in 4-bar chunks. So I could sort of go and figure it out, but
that's great, isn't it? Because that doesn't always happen.
Well, but it's just, that's how we're supposed to be doing this stuff together.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be collaborative.
But there's going to be lots of people here who don't have that experience at all.
But the only thing that stops you from having experience is, well, in this case, make sure you have some decent red wine around, and you just invite your collaborators in. And they invite you in. I mean, I think one of the advantages I have is that I don't have a formal musical education. So I'm never going to fall prey to using words that are incomprehensible to a director, like allegro or, pizza. Actually, Chris Nolan always made it a thing of, on each movie, learning a new musical term that he could sort of casually drop in on the dub stage. Pizzicato. So no, but I mean it's story. We're talking about story. How are we going to tell the story? I mean, the way we worked was literally in my room, couch behind me, Ridley sitting there smoking big cigars, me going, he's ruining her voice. Lisa with a microphone, the picture up, and we just try things up against the picture. And I remember the scene, where Russell comes home and finds that his wife has been killed. And we had thought we'd done something like extraordinary, and we played it to Ridley. He said, no, it's not really working for me. And so this turned into this whole conversation, like at 2 o'clock in the morning, after she was poisoned by more cigar smoke than you can imagine. Lisa went, okay, fine, I'm going to have one more go. And, she was pretty wound up at that point. And I remember we just put the scene up, me sort of playing to it, and she just laid into it, and it was the most amazing performance. It came from a place that, you know, just an extraordinary place, but I'm not sure you want to go and know where that place is somehow. It's like, it was so dark. Yeah, and I turn around and Ridley's just like, and I'm going, how's that? And he's going, but that's what you want to do. That's the job. You want to pin your director in his seat. It's not, our job as composers isn't to do what they tell you to do. Our job is to surprise them. Our job is to do the stuff they can't imagine. You know, that's, you know, and if you work with great directors, they love that. You know, never thought about it that way. That's the best compliment you can get.